and I'm not going to be doing anything crazy, I think I'm lying right now, because I just want you all to meet this guy. We get this close to you. And if I was close enough to you, I could hug on you, Dean Butler, who is Almanzo Wilder on Little House on the Prairie. I told you, before the show, I told my mother, I'm leaving. And you still blush. You still blush to this day.
It's my life.
I'm a huge fan. I have loved you always. And when they were saying, well, Harlan, or your publicist called and said, well, Mother Love, let's get Dean Butler on the show. I'm like, from Little House on the Prairie. He was like, yeah. I'm like, okay, let's go. Let's go with that. And I am just, wait a minute, I got a little alfalfa thing going on with my hair.
You look great.
Oh, thank you. You're looking at me at your good eye, too. Ladies and gentlemen, the incomparable Dean Butler. He was the iconic, I have to say, you still are the iconic male role on Little House on the Prairie. Oh, and that was something deep. That was something deep because, we all want an older man. And I didn't realize you were that much older than her. Tell us about how you got when you started this. When you was 12 years old, did you think you was going to wake up one day and say, you know what, folks? I'm going to become a TV icon.
Wow, that's quite a setup, Mother Love. So, when I started all of this, I really had really no awareness of Little House on the Prairie as a show. I had never read the books. I had never watched an episode of the series before joining it. I knew who Michael Landon was because everyone on planet Earth knew who Michael Landon was.
That little Joe from Bonanza.
Yeah, no, but we were all watching Bonanza. We all saw that and knew that program. And he was just an incredible presence in all of that. I didn't really, and I was watching promos, because on Monday nights, when I became aware of Little House, I was watching Monday Night Football on the West Coast, which meant that a game started at 6. I wasn't going to turn away from a third quarter of a good game to watch Little House on the Prairie. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out why Michael Landon traded it being like this very desirable bachelor, shoot 'em up Western star for being a poor dirt farmer. I just didn't get that. I didn't understand why.
It wasn't working right here. Wasn't working.
So, but once I started watching the show, I understood what his motivation was. I mean, Michael wanted to teach. He wanted to give people examples about how to live and, how they could be in the world. That was really important to Michael, and be successfully in the world. Michael grew up in a very unhappy home, so Little House for him was a way of helping so many people who grew up in unhappy homes get it right, or give them some other input that would allow them to establish positive, happy home lives. So I think this was a huge part of Michael's motivation. When I was 12 years old, Mother Love, I think I may have allowed myself to dare to dream of maybe, I don't think so. I was so shy during those years, and you picked right up on my blushing and all of that. I mean, that's a feature of my life. It's always been part of my life. And when I was a kid, no one wants to.
Wait a minute, you were a kid? You weren't born grown like people think?
No. So no one wants to be a target, when they're a kid at any age in their life. Right. But when you have no sense of humor about it, I did not do well with being teased about my blushing. So I wanted to really lay low. I didn't want anyone to sort of see me, comment about any of that. So it wasn't until later in my evolution into my teens that I discovered a way to step into this, that I felt like I finally had some control over how I was being perceived. And it was a big game changer for me. Huge game changer.
Were you ever even interested in becoming an actor?
Not until I had this sort of epiphany moment in my sophomore year in high school. So I was 15 years old.
Oh, that's
like that.
Old 15 is rough.
Yeah, old 15. Yeah. So the same age, I was the same age that I was when I met Melissa Gilbert. So when she was that age when she met me, when I met her. So I was a very average student, pretty shy, low key, disappearing. And I had a geometry teacher who invited me to do the scorebook for varsity basketball games at Piedmont High School. And this was something, I'd never done anything like that. It was very cool for me to get that chance. Before that first game started, he asked me, who wants to introduce the starting lineups? In front of me on the table, and we're both talking on one now, there was a old style Silver Shure pedestal microphone. And if this moment had been in a movie, Mother Love, the gym would have gone dark, everything would have gone quiet, and a pin spot would have come down on this microphone. Mm-hmm. And I saw my life in this microphone. And when I spoke into the microphone to introduce the players on the team for the game, it was one of the first times in my life that I felt like I was speaking and someone wasn't teasing me or making fun of me, making a joke at my expense. Mm-hmm. They were cheering the players. It had nothing to do with me, mm-hmm. but they loved the guys who were playing in the game. And so I had that experience mm-hmm. of being accepted. And that was a huge transformational moment for me.
That was a big validation. A big validation that, look, I'm Dean Butler, and I'm not here by happen chance. I got some things to do. I got people to see. I got to go make some money, and I know I am supposed to be here. And you know how hard that is for a lot of people to step into their purpose, even with people, talking about them. Oh, look at him, look. And I'm glad I can still make you blush. So, that's gonna be my mother love fairy.
There you go. See, I can see my tint in the camera here. It's like, oh my God, welcome to my life.
That had to be murder on the makeup people. You keep turning red. You trying to fix. Some makeup? Can you come in here and fix things?
No makeup here. It's just I'm just gonna be red, Mother Love. That's it.
Just so you know, and I'm sure a lot of us know, Little House on the Prairie was so wholesome and so family-like, and you all went through hell and high water and gasoline underwear on that family on the prairie, and we could all relate to that. And it was good that even coming from the projects in Cleveland, Ohio, we had a connection. Our families and our communities had a connection because it wasn't about anything else except about family, friends, relationships, and how you deal with them. And you think about way back then, okay, you could not even do that show now. You couldn't even do the show. Tell people, because there was an age difference between you and Melissa Gilbert.
Right.
What was that like for you coming in with your big fan strapping self, and you got to talk to this little 15-year-old girl who don't know crap from apple butter? Okay, shut up. Don't be.
I think Melissa might dispute that descriptor that you gave her. But I mean, in terms of like a dating life or, any kind of romantic life, Melissa was pretty inexperienced at that point in her life. She was a young 15-year-old. Yeah. There are 15-year-olds who have a lot more life savvy about them. Now, as an actress, as a person in the entertainment industry, Melissa was and is one of the smartest people I've ever been around. I mean, she totally gets it. She was born into this world. She understands it. She understands how it works, and she understands her place in it. But as a young woman, as an adolescent girl, she had not yet had any kind of life experience. And so my job was to make that as easy and painless for her as possible. And, it was about, the audience had to always feel that Melissa was safe. You never could feel, if the audience ever had a sense that Laura was out of her depth, that was being pushed in a way that she wasn't comfortable with, I think that would have just been catastrophic for the program. That would not have been good. And Michael never would have let that happen. But I think that's a big part of why I was hired. I just think he sensed in me a high level of respect for women, a level. I was raised by in a very strong matriarchal family. So
this is what gets me. You are a native Californian. You're like what 1,100 generations here in California, and the fact that you didn't think that you could even go into that. I mean, you go across the street and you're in Hollywood.
Yeah, well, no, I was raised in Northern California.
It's still the same thing.
So it's it was okay. It's 350 miles south to come to Los Angeles, which was really a tough thing for me. I grew up in the Bay Area, where our teams, and as a kid you connect with teams. My 49ers were regularly thrashed by the Los Angeles Rams. The Giants were beaten by the Dodgers. The Lakers beat the Warriors. I mean, I lived in a world. USC beat my Cal Bears, beat Stanford. I mean, UCLA beat up on Cal and Stanford. There was not a lot of love lost for me, especially between Northern California and Southern California. So, coming down here, I had a certain amount of anxiety about that. And when I came into Los Angeles for the first time in 1977 on my little yellow Volkswagen Beetle, coming over the Grapevine and seeing that wall of smog coming at me, I thought, what am I getting into?
So you remember the big brown ring around Los Angeles?
Oh, my God.
And this what they say. California and Los Angeles, we don't like air we can't see.
Well, and now, now you really, it's so much better now. I mean, 40 years later, nearly 40 years later, you rarely have a day other than fog that you have a smog issue. I mean, we don't have those days anymore. When I first arrived in Los Angeles in that September, I think of 1977, there were days in September, and I was living over in Burbank.
Did you just go back to 1977? Good gracious.
So I couldn't see a quarter of a mile down the street in Burbank. It was real. I had headaches. I felt nauseous for the first couple of weeks I was here. That was really a cultural shock for me to step into that.
And even you coming from California, living in the state, and you go, wait a minute, this is what Southern California do. We have, what they say, we have riots and fires and quakes. Oh my, riots and fires. That's what we have in California. And and even you being a Californian, people, when you break into the business, everybody else thinks everybody in California.
Oh, sure, right. No, exactly.
Find your
way.
Well,
everyone's they assume there's this assumption, and I think it's because of entertainment media and the National Enquirer in those days and People magazine. Everyone's a millionaire. Everyone drives a Rolls Royce. All of that, and that is so not the case.
And when
it's never been the case.
You could tell them everything and be straight up with them, and then don't let them hit Hollywood Boulevard at night when the streets are sparkling. And we told them it's paved with honey, and come out and find out. Yeah, it might be paved with honey, but if you step in there with your good shoes on, you're gonna be stuck. You said it was a big culture shock. What was the biggest thing, especially being a Californian, for you when you went from Northern California and you come down here to Southern California? And did you think you was in Freak Show City Town?
The first, I'll tell you, I was rooming with a guy I had done a movie of the week with up in San Francisco. And we had gotten an apartment at the Oakwood Garden Apartments on Barham Boulevard. I mean, this is where, you came when new people arrived in town, you moved to the Oakwood Garden Apartments.
Okay.
The first person I met at the door of my apartment after I had stepped in the first time, there was a knock on the door, and on the other side of the door was Valerie Landsberg. Do you know Valerie Landsberg?
Is she any kin to Angela?
So no, that's Angela Lansbury. But no, Valerie Landsberg was on Fame for years.
Okay.
Her father was Alan Landsberg was a wonderful producer.
Now I got the connection.
Yeah, very good. So she was this very hip, brassy, loud Southern California, Beverly Hills, Beverly Hills girl, Beverly Hills chick. And I thought, wow, I was so unprepared for that energy. I'd never met anyone like that before in Northern California. We, where I grew up, everyone was pretty low key. pretty, understated. There was nothing understated about Valerie Landsberg. She just sort of exploded into this apartment.
Uh-huh.
And I got a real lesson in Southern California culture from her in about 10 minutes.
What was the lesson? What were some of the lessons that you got in 10 minutes? Because when they come at you like that and you're not used to this kind of environment, you're just kind of like standing there like a deer in the headlights.
Yeah, no, I really did feel like a deer in the headlights in the early time. And I think that was part of what, look, that quality, Mother Love, is what landed me on Little House. It was that quality that got me there. If I'd been a hipper, more sophisticated Southern California guy and I had radiated that, I never would have been hired for that show. I think Michael wanted very authentically, and look, Melissa Gilbert called me a hayseed at one point. At 15, I'm 8 years, I'm the hayseed. She called me a hayseed, but and I was a little rubbed the wrong way when she said that. But
wait, before you go on, tell people what is meant by calling you a hayseed.
Well, I think she just meant I was like, well, if you're a hayseed, literally, it's like you've just come. I mean, the way I would interpret that is you've just come out of a hayfield and you've got some straw in your hair. And that's because you're a country guy and you're really unsophisticated and you're just living this very natural life, very unsophisticated life in relative terms compared to the way young people are raised in Southern California. I was coming from this very simple, unsophisticated background. I think it was a smart background, but it wasn't a culturally hip background. In fact, where I came from, all of that was sort of frowned upon. That was just a little bit too loud, a little bit too outspoken. The word was smart people play it a little more on the down low. And that was what I came from. And I was, so I was very cautious. I said, I shook everybody's hand. I wore a coat and tie to actor auditions. I regardless of what the part was,
Dean, now that's class. That is class. You can have all the money in the world and all the perks and all these people around you. You cannot buy class, because class is where your inner core is. And when you're not like that, I mean, it gets kind of crazy, and you're like, oh my goodness, what is wrong with these people? Are they all on drugs? And can I talk to their drug dealer?
Well, I think people looked at me, Mother Love, and wondered if I was for real. I mean, I don't know if they quite believed that someone could be that sort of relatively unsophisticated. Let me tell you what it is.
You coming from a simple background, which was a huge foundation for whatever it was that you were going to do with your life and in your life, and what kind of a legacy that you're going to leave. And you got this, you come from, we sit down and pray at the table, we go to church, we help the homeless people. And then you come down here to LA and you're like, what the Sam H-E-double Hawkins is going on in this town? They got pink hair, purple hair.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And I'm like this. And they had to teach. They said, okay, now, Mother Love, we're going to teach you how to be able to, deal with the community. First thing you don't do is you don't stare. I'm from Cleveland. I'm like, oh no, I'm staring. And they said, why are you looking at me? Because you got tattoos in your face, baby. That ain't attractive. Who told you that was gonna make you look good? You wanted people to see that and say, I was in the post office one day, and this is even when you're in a car, and you stop at a stoplight. We have a tendency to look around, see what our surroundings are. Right?
Okay, yeah.
And this is a big guy, and he had a little son with him. He couldn't have been no more than 4 or 5 years old. And so I was just standing in line, just like, I turned around. That was I couldn't stop it. I was like, whoa! He said, well, ma'am, are you all right? I'm like, you ain't all. Why you got all these tattoos in your face and on your arm? You ain't got nothing on your body. You will never be able to be buried in a Jewish cemetery. He goes, no, I'm not Jewish. I said, well, you just took that off the plate. So that's one. And he just looked at me and he just thought I was really crazy. But by the time I got finished, we were walking out the post office hand in hand. And this is what he said: you sound just like my mother. I said, baby, because I am your mother. I'm mother love.
Mother
And then he went to
love.
full, fans. I'm like, dude, that is not.
Where did you get that? Where did you get that name? How did you come by the name Mother
Okay,
Love?
wait, no, this is not how this works, Dean. I ask the questions.
Oh,
Here's the
okay,
gist.
okay.
You don't get to ask the whole.
I was
Okay, but I'm gonna
curious,
tell you.
so I thought
I'm gonna
I'd
tell you
ask, but
because you
okay.
asked me. When I went to college, we attended the Ohio State University, and I'm out there and I'm loud and boisterous, and I got a cute body and I got a big giant butt, and I could run through the game room, and I could do a 4-foot vertical leap and jump in the middle of the pool table. And so everybody used to come. They would, how college students are. They get drunk. They be happy. I just need to go see Sister Love. She'll tell me what this thing is. Why is it white like this? Why is it growing? And they would come, will you look at this, sister? And I'm like, yeah, you got VD. Come on, let's go to the.
Oh my God! Wow. Okay.
So
wow.
they decided. Some of the guys, I had more male friends than I do female friends. So my male friends were like, okay, you could go to her. She'll tell you what you need to do. I'm 17 years old, and I became Sister Love of the university. When our son was born, I never even thought anymore about it to this child. That God picked this child M1. I'm like, this. I'm like, I done just messed up the game. What am I doing with another human being? Oh my goodness. And just like she sprung forth from my forehead like Zeus. She was, I saw this big black sturdy woman. She on a 1940s dress with the little pillbox hat, the gloves and the handkerchief and everything. And she was standing and saying, yeah, your mother love. Now what you gonna do with that mouth? Because you got somebody to take care of, and they're gonna be watching everything you do. And I was like, why don't you get out of my hospital room? And I watched God put our son, he just touched his face like this, and I know it wasn't nobody because he touched his face like this. And when he took it away, our son has the deepest dimples. And I told him, you ain't never gonna be looking hard. You got them dimples gonna give you away. That smile gonna give you away. You're like, oh Mom, what you do? And I was like, I just wanted to see if my body worked too. When they told me you're pregnant, I can't be pregnant. The doctor said, well, you better tell that up. I don't know what it is. Like, what?
I'm going about 50 shades of red here as you're telling me this story. I mean, look at this. I've got all this red
and this one, people think you just blush from here up. You just wave your hand, they just red as your face,
head to toe.
And you don't go to Vegas and gamble, do you?
I really don't. Las Vegas has never been a place. I mean, the shows are great. I love the lights and all that, but yeah, Las Vegas is not a place that I would ever go to hang out. And
when I brought that up because you and I are the people we wouldn't do well at the poker table because my husband came over, got my cards at the poker table because I didn't know you're supposed to not tell people. I'm like, oh, I got you.
Right, fold.
And we have a tell. We have a tell, and we're easy. That's why you wear your feelings on your sleeve. And then when you can get them out, you don't have to keep any of that toxicity. You don't have to keep any of that nastiness.
Yeah.
You get to do what you get to do. So what was the conversation like? Because you were always also in the movie Forever. He'd been on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. This cat has a list. You have a resume, and it doesn't seem like it has ever changed your core. The man who you are. How are you able to hold on to that part of Dean? Because this business, well, I can't even find nothing to spit you out. Did I just chew the paper?
Yeah, no, I think it can be.
How are you able to hold on to your humanity and your place in the world?
I think that's a very challenging thing and particularly any young person. That's challenging if you're surrounded by older people who are, or just people who seem to be more experienced or more, just more ahead of the game than you are. I just think, for me, it's about what my upbringing was. I was raised in a very particular way to be the person that I am. I was validated for that. Look, wasn't a perfect upbringing. Who has a perfect upbringing? I don't know anybody has a perfect upbringing, but I had.
And if they tell you that it's a perfect upbringing, they're lying.
Yeah, I mean,
come on, let's just keep it real, Dean. They're lying.
I felt good about the lessons I was getting. Mm-hmm. No, I certainly evolved through the years. Things have. I am not thinking perhaps exactly the same way now that I did when I was a young man, but basically, fundamentally, I feel good about the lessons I got as I was a kid. And I think I learned very early, at least what I was being taught about what was right, what was wrong, what was good, what was bad, how to behave, how not to behave. I got those lessons very clearly, strongly, early on.
I know what that strongly means.
And that stuff stays with you. You know,
Especially
and,
when
and
you
it,
know
and it
right.
always served me well.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. I think that the reactions I got, or I felt like the upbringing I got, although, okay, it wasn't cool in Southern California. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was looking at all the crazy stuff that was going on in Southern California with a lot of young people, I thought, well, this may be the cool thing, but it's not a good thing necessarily.
Just
so
because
I didn't worry about that
mm-hmm.
so much. Yes, you always want to be accepted. Everyone wants to be accepted. But I think if you have a good compass on you about what's right and what's right and what's not right, I think that serves you very, very well. And if you're able to verbalize that, people, blushing and all that aside, people get it. They understand who you are. And I think people will accept you if they sense that you accept yourself.
You brought this up about authenticity, and we don't see a lot of that. And coming from an intact family, all of us came from a dysfunctional family. Well, I don't know if they was dysfunctional. My mother said, listen, this is a totalitarian dictatorship. You're going to do what I say, when I say it, and how I say it. And don't you ask me any questions.
At home, you're talking about.
Don't ask me any questions. I can say, well, you'll say, well, mama, why? Because I said so. And that was enough. That was and that's the way that we were brought up. We were brought up with that foundation.
Yeah.
And to watch it through the decades where it's deteriorating, I couldn't even imagine growing up in a community where everybody didn't look out for everybody else. I was born and raised in the projects in Cleveland, Ohio. They called our apartment, our place where we live, the Carver Park Estates. So I looked up estates. I'm like, this must be a good thing. I live in the estates, and everybody looked out for everybody. We were in a village. There was nobody that we denied coming through. My mother had the Rainbow Coalition of Friends before Jesse Jackson even knew what a Rainbow Coalition was. And she knew. I thought she knew everybody. But she acted like she knew everybody and everybody knew her. And that was important because, you could be acting a fool someplace and you don't know who your mom and daddy know. And they call you before you even get home, call your mom and daddy. And case in point, I was a very apt student. I was very smart. I was on a National Honor Society. I knew I was graduating early from high school. And, I was on it. And so me and my girlfriends decided they would call it kidnapping now when we were all being federal prison. We took one of our neighbor men hostage and made him take us across town to the bowling alley. So we go over here where the rich white people live because ain't nobody gonna know us over there. Let's go. Why are we sitting at the light? A fire truck pulls up and you just kind of watch it. I was telling you about the guy in the post office. I look up. It's one of my mother's dear friends who is a firefighter. Wasn't no way he didn't know because I saw him mention, and he stopped. I was like, Lord, please, Jesus, can you just kill me now? Can I just go in the bowling alley and just have a massive stroke or a heart attack? My mother never in my entire academic career did she ever say to me, so how was school today? Well, that day, it'll be... And she was, so how was school today? And I'm thinking, why the heck are you at home? You early from work. What? You just here to make my life miserable. She never, I couldn't even tune my lips up to, I was like, she said, whatever you say, I won't gonna know you're lying.
Yeah.
And I couldn't even get the story straight. And all I could think about, she really does have eyes in the back of her head.
Oh, my mother.
Did your mother say, wait a minute, could she give you the look? Wait a minute, could they give you the look like give you the side eye?
Yeah, no, my mother knew.
I'd be choking you.
Yeah, if I wasn't being totally straightforward with my mother, she knew it. She absolutely knew it, and a very similar background to yours. All the parents knew the parents. It was a small community I grew up in, so yeah, everyone knew everybody. No one was going. Look, I was never a bad kid anyway. I was never pushing the boundaries because I was raised not to do that. But. And I think probably one of the reasons I didn't was because it was clear that everybody was watching. Now my younger brother pushed it a lot.
Oh, so how many brothers and
everyone
sisters
knew
do you
what he
have?
was doing, but he was still pushing it.
I
didn't push it.
But how many siblings did you have?
So there are three. So I'm the oldest of three. My brother's 3 years younger than I am, and my sister's 4 years younger than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a well, like all younger siblings. So I think there's a real advantage to having an older brother or a sister, because you're watching your older sibling make all the mistakes that every firstborn makes. And so I think they really benefited from that.
You don't even have to bring that part up. I'm one of 6, and my older sister, God rest her soul, and then it's me. And we had 2 brothers and 2 younger sisters. And when you're a middle child like I am, you kind of don't get a lot of play, because this is my oldest. Oh my God, these my 2 boys. Yeah, I love my son. They're my 2 babies. I'm like, well, Mom, what about me? Yeah, you.
Yeah, right.
And
exactly.
So making right way, my sisters and brothers, oh my God, they would tell you in a minute, she was the worst child ever. And they learned everything from me not to do.
Okay.
When you say your brother pushed the envelope, I didn't even realize I was pushing the envelope, and my mother would say, I am not coming out there in the world finding you dead in the gutter someplace. And I went, well, Ma, I don't fool around with people who would have me dead in the ditch. Okay, yeah. I didn't say it. I wanted to keep living. But the look was like, I'm going to tell you this, Alpha. And I can't, to this day, I cannot wear a watch. You could put a Rolex on me. A $25,000 Rolex. If it's on me for more than 10 minutes, I'm going to shut that sucker down. And I found out I have a bad disadvantage with quartz, but they put all in the chips and everything. Oh. I have to hold my phone out like this. So I thought I had a superpower. She told me, you ain't got a bigger superpower than I do, because I'm your mother. I brought you here and I'll take you out. And I believed her. She carried a loaded 38 in her purse. And then, Mama, why you got a loaded gun? Wow. She said, it's not too big for me to whoop. And we were stair-stepping. There were 7 years between my older sister and my younger sister. And she said, because if I have to pop a cap on one of y'all, I'm just going to shoot off y'all. And they're going to take me to the morgue. They're going to take me to the nutty house. So I'm just going to be in the crazy house. So go ahead, try. She was deep. My mother was deep. I thought she was the stupidest person in the world.
Wow. Yeah. So at what point did your mother get smart?
Oh, I like the way you put it. What point did your mother get smart? Because you was the stupid one when I had turned 18.
There you go.
College. I turned 18, and all the stuff that she would tell me about how to conduct myself as a woman, how to keep myself protected, that there were going to be predators out there who give a less than a flying crap about me. She made sure we had the details. She made sure that we were, we could take care of ourselves. And I was like, so Mom, why you got a gun? She said, because if I shoot one of y'all, I'm going to shoot all of y'all.
Oh, wow.
And so my sisters and brothers would say, why don't you just shut up? Why you gotta keep talking? Mama crazy, boy.
Yeah, our parents do get smarter as we get older.
Isn't that something? Wait a minute. Yeah. Do you walk past the mirror and you go, I look just like my dad. I look just like my mother. Good Lord, what didn't happen and you realize they are warriors. They put their footprints down and are willing to get on the ground and put us on their shoulders so we could see farther than they could. And that's so important. And if you believe in the Bible, Scripture tell you, and people get this messed up. Scripture says, honor your mother and father so your days are long. Not their days are long, so your days are long. Because you get stuck on stupid with your parenthood, life is going to be a whole lot worse for you when you don't honor the people that you come from.
Yeah.
My mother been dead since the 1900s, and I'm still scared of her.
You're still remembering your mother and thinking about your mother and honoring your mother.
And
those relationships are everything in our lives. Mm-hmm. They totally shape us. And we carry those lessons through our lives. There's no question. And it's so, I think one of the reasons, Mother Love, that people love Little House so much is because Michael Landon and Karen Grassley projected a kind of a dignity and a love in parenting that so many people who didn't grow up with that
miss that,
touch that or see that and experience that through them. Okay, they were just watching them on television, but they got to model behavior that was good behavior, thoughtful behavior, well considered, generous, decent. And though if there's any question about, and I think people fundamentally know, I think we have a little voice in our heads that tells us what's good and what's not good, what's right and what's not right. I think you just sort of know intuitively. I think we have that. I think we feel it. And Michael and Karen presented that in a beautiful way.
In a family way. And as we were talking earlier, most of the people that I would have to say 99% of the people that I grew up with, the mother and the father were in the home. Our father died when I was 9 years old, and my mother refused to get married again. She's like, oh, no, it's going to have your daddy's name on my tombstone. I'm telling you right now, I'm not going to do that. And she never remarried. She was a widow at 30 with 6 small children. And she was fierce. Our mother was fierce, and she spoke the truth. And she was tough enough to say, you know how kids come to you, go to your mom and your dad, you say, well, what about us and so? And they go, well, you don't need to go ask your mom about that. Go ask your daddy about that. She would say to us, I don't know that, baby. Let's go find out. And we would walk to the library and no. She gave us a great love of reading. What are some of the good qualities that you stand on right now that came from your upbringing?
Well, I think trying to be, doing my very best to be always trying to be honest with people and be an honest person and not be a deceptive person. I think, and you said it earlier, some of us have it on our faces. Like, I'm never going to be a good poker player. It's, it's just not, I think whatever is going on with me just sort of flows right out. So I think I learned early to be pretty straightforward about what I was doing so that I didn't have to have a lot of stories that I had to remember telling a lot of different people. That's not the way of operating. Look, it's not that I haven't been careful about saying certain things at certain times, but generally on an overarching way, being straightforward and being direct has been a very good thing for me. I think I learned very early on from my parents and my grandparents the value of family. That was a very big deal. My grandfather used to say that you don't necessarily, and we had a large family. I was around a large family, multi-generational family, a lot. And he would say to us that, okay, your family, they don't all have to be your favorite people. It would be nice if they were, but they don't have to be. But you will respect them. You will respect them because they are your family. He really lived by that old adage that blood is thicker than water. He really believed that family connection was a unifying thing. That's a relationship that you have with a certain group of people that you don't have with anybody else, regardless of how many friends you have and the people you know and all that. We all can know lots of different people, but very few of those people are really your family. And that family requires, as I was raised, a level of respect and honoring that. And again, it doesn't mean everyone had to be your favorite person, but they were your family. And I learned very early on that I was to respect and honor my family, and that's been a really good lesson.
And especially the elders,
Totally.
It was, I couldn't even imagine talking back to a teacher or somebody in the church, or I couldn't even imagine that, because when I grew up, they were like, they pop you real quick.
Yeah, wow.
And this one, you stay in a child's place. That's what I got all the time. Child's place.
But mother loved my mother. I remember you just brought up something that I remember very distinctly now. My mother told me that I had to respect authority figures. And I was told very early on that if there was a question about my behavior, if there was my version of what happened and the teacher's version of what happened, I should absolutely count on the fact that it was the teacher's version of what happened that was going to be the controlling point of view about what happened.
Mhm.
So that told me right away, there's no slip and slide here. I'm not going to be able to play somebody off use my parents as a way of playing.
Oh, no.
They were going to listen to that teacher, and then they might listen to what I had to say.
Mhm.
But what I had
I like
to
what
say
you said.
better
They might
agreed with
listen to what
the
I have to
teacher said.
say.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was very locked in, and because of that, I was very. I wasn't looking to play the angles or edges and sort of play people against each other. I was raised to take things as they came at me at pretty much at face value. I mean, this is what someone's telling me. I'm going to accept that until I find out, for whatever reason, that's not a good thing. But my inclination is to accept and go on. Now, that may not always serve you the best. I mean, there are people who are going to not tell us the truth. And we have to be at some point, we have to be willing or able to make discerning judgments about what's coming at us. But in the beginning, when we're young, I think it's just incredibly important to be able to feel like you can trust the authority figures around you. Now, if we can't trust those people, I think that's very damaging.
And it's extremely damaging. And unfortunately, there are so many predators out here who will prey on these young girls and boys who they know what they're doing. Who know that, let me go get that one. That one's vulnerable. Somebody's leaving her by herself. Why is he over here in the corner by himself? And sometimes you have to just step out of your comfort zone and say what is right and what is wrong. And as a child, there were often times that my mother had to say to other adults when they would say, "You shut up, you don't get to talk like that." And I would say, "Well, Mama, that ain't her husband. I think that ain't her husband." And she would say, "Baby, just be quiet, just be quiet." And we would go, she said, "No, that is not her husband," or "That's not his wife." Or the first time I saw two men kissing, or two women hugging and kissing, I'm like, "Why they can't do?" She was like, "Oh Lord." Then I'm coming in with a whole nother set of issues that they need to explain to me. And what I found out is by me getting into so much trouble and asking so many questions, it really helped my brothers and sisters understand we're not doing that crazy stuff. He is just out there in deep third.
See, I think Mother Love, you bring up lots of really interesting issues in these conversations.
You know why you say that? I'm telling you why you say that, Dean. Because you're easily entertained.
So, but I really like what you just said about kids asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
I feel very fortunate, and it sounds like you had this too, where your mother she may say this is not the right time to answer that question.
Right. Will you get out of my head with my mom?
But she would, it sounds like your mother would ultimately answer your questions. Mm-hmm. And my mother would always answer my questions at the appropriate time. And so she really demystified a lot of things for me. And I think something that's very, it's not across the board nothing's across the board in our culture, but we hear a lot today about parents who don't want their children to hear different things,
history
that are different information that's coming at them.
I mean, could you imagine? I mean, let me ask you this, because being an alumni of one of the most beloved television shows in history from Little House of the Prairie, I told you I was gonna run away from home and come to the set wherever you were, and I was gonna marry you.
There you
go.
She
was like, "They not gonna let your behind up on the set." I'm like, "Why? Why can't I have a pretty boyfriend like him?" And
I get a pretty boyfriend.
I want to get your take on being an adult and being able to make sure that the character Melissa Gilbert played Laura Ingalls, that she felt safe, because she was 15, 16 when you came on to be her love interest.
Right.
What was that like? Because if we try that now, you know what they're gonna do. You're gonna be up under the jail.
Yeah, no,
That's where
again, my answer to that is, the short answer is, we had to be very careful and respectful.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the nature of the program anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think it was all in sync that it was going to be handled that way. But I think, my upbringing, which we've been talking about a little bit, really prepared me to be a good guy in that situation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I am so grateful for that. I have always been grateful, and as I've gotten older, increasingly grateful for the upbringing I had.
Mm-hmm.
But my job was to be respectful, to be respectful of her relative naivete on a personal level. As an actress, Melissa could run circles around me. As a person who was living in the world, I had a little more life experience than she'd had at that point. And I wanted to be careful and respectful about that. And I think those were the lessons that I got at home.
I mean, this is 50 years later. We're talking 50 years later, and it's still, when we watch it on the reruns, it's just, I'm like a little kid. I'm like, look at him. Oh, that's and I don't know if you know this, but I've had Alison Arngrim on the show with me.
Well, of course you have. I think Alison has talked to every media personality in America.
Well, I'm glad I got her, in the Zoom time, and she talked about the relationships that were going on, on the set and off the set, and she was saying how respectful that the elders were to her, and she played little nasty Nellie, and and she played that role. So
she did.
So all of you did an excellent job.
She was awesome.
But to be still standing 50 years later.
I know.
What are some of I want to know what was that phone call, because they didn't do email back then. What was that call like when they called you up and said, Dean, we want you to read for Little House on the Prairie?
I know. I got the call from my agent, and I had auditioned for Michael in late April of 1979, and he basically offered me the part in the room without officially offering it. But I didn't actually get an offer for another 2.5 weeks after that. And I really felt like this had gone well. He basically asked me what I was doing in the middle of May. I told him. He said, he was just very positive about it. To have not gotten any word for 2.5 weeks, I was just feeling like, what has happened here? Has this gone completely sideways? How could that have happened? When I did get the call from my agent, a wonderful woman named Ina Bernstein at International Creative Management, I got her phone call, and they told me, darling, sweetheart, she said something like that. Oh. She was like a grandmother. We got an offer, sweetheart. And so she, I was just overjoyed. And she loved Little House. So when these auditions came up, she said, if you get an offer to do Little House, you will do Little House. I mean, it wasn't a question. It was a statement. You will do Little House.
That sounded like your mother, your grandmother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was great. And I think she was as thrilled for me as I was to have this opportunity. I didn't really know. I mean, look, I was just grateful, as many young actors would be, Mother Love, to get a job, to get a job.
And you can get paid for it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was really the big win. It wasn't until I started working on the show, really working on the show, that I truly realized how good it was. And I think at that point, during that first summer, I was shooting and then watching reruns from season 5 during that summer, and watching episodes and these beautiful stories with beautiful pictures and music and wonderful performances. I was so knocked out by this as I watched it. And as it went on, by the time we premiered by the time I came on in September of 1979, there was no doubt in my mind that I was involved in something really special. This was really clear.
A great feeling when you get that. So when your folks would, did you go to them and say, I want to be on TV, I want to be a star, and what did they say?
So my mother who loved high school theatricals.
Okay.
You know, she did a lot of plays and so forth. She loved the idea, but my father had a very predictably, as a lot of fathers would, had a very different take on it about how are you going to make a living. And I think, you know, at the time, no one wants to hear that. In retrospect, my father was being a good father and asking that question. And he was doing, you know, because he had to make a living. He had to do what he was doing, and no one fixed it for him. He had to get it done. And he was justifiably concerned. And, you know, I would say about acting, and I've said this to people, you know, when it's going well, there are few things more fun for a whole range of reasons. There are few things as fun as being an actor. On the other side of it, when things are not going well, and they don't go well for everybody at some time, it's horrible when it's not going well. And I think that's when you find out how, well, either you find out, you know, how dedicated you are and you were able to ride that through and hopefully come out on the other end. Or if it's never gone well, you know, there's a point where you have to say, I need to look at another direction here. And I think just for survival, we all have to do that. I always say to young people that I talk to in schools, if there's nothing else you can imagine yourself doing than being an actor, you have to try it. You know, you've got to give it a shot. If there's, on the other hand, if there's anything else you can imagine yourself doing besides being an actor, do that. Because it's so hard. It can be soul crushing.
And it's brutal.
Because it's never, the decisions that are made, the judgments that are made about you aren't personal.
No,
they have nothing to do
business.
with it. But you are a commodity,
right?
And you are being viewed as a commodity. And it's like, well, I don't like that commodity. I want another commodity. For you as the actor, it's deeply personal, and your whole life is engaged in it. And for most actors, even really successful actors, if you look over the course of a career, you're probably only going to get about 5, you know, maybe if you're exceptional, you might get 10% of the jobs you audition for, maybe. Most actors, even successful actors, will go back through a career and say they got maybe 5% of what they auditioned for. There is so much defeat and disappointment in all this. You really need some good things to balance out all that. And I was fortunate that I got that.
You got to have good skin, because in this business, as in a lot of competitive businesses, you have to know what your mettle is. You have to know when it comes down to being in a dog fight, you got to figure out, are you going to be the one getting chewed up, or are you going to be the one that's doing the chewing? And I remember when I first got into this business, and this is the first time when I came to California, was the first time I ever got fired from a job. I had never been fired or never been said, okay, well, we're going in another direction. I'm like, what other direction you going to go in? I'm going the same direction you're going. And see, I didn't know how. See, they didn't give me the Hollywood handbook. They sent for me to come out here to California. So I'm like, okay, y'all knew who I was. I came right. Y'all knew what the thing was. And a lot of it is about control. The suits controlling the talent. And when talent speaks up, a lot of them have a problem with that. I mean, I know people have a lot of problem with me because I'm straightforward. I'm allergic to BS. And I'm like you said earlier, talk to you straight. Tell me honestly. I could take no. I can handle it. That's not a problem. You know, because I'm going to keep moving and keep moving. Talking about keep moving. You are not just an iconic actor. And we was going to marry you. It was going to be like 6 of us was going to marry you. We was ready for, they got one with their wives, and they got like sister wives. It's got one husband and 18 wives. You would have been that guy. And you produce, you direct, you wear many, many hats, and you do so much. What made you decide, you know what, Dean? I think I'm going to write my memoir.
Yeah, so I think where the trying other things, or producing and writing a little bit and directing, I think what I loved about that is that for me, that became a more immersive process where you are there from the beginning to the end of the project. As an actor, I became aware very quickly, certainly in film, that the actor is very important for probably the shortest part of the process, which is the actual production. What happens before that? There's a ton of work that goes on before a camera ever turns on. That's a really exciting part of the process. And what happens after the actors are wrapped and go home, the editing, the marketing, all of those things happen after the actor goes home. And that part of the process I found as immersively interesting, if not more immersively interesting, than the work that I was doing, because it was about the actual creation of the thing. Whatever the thing is, the people, I really came to the conclusion that the producers and the directors are really the ones who are having the most fun. The actors are the most public part of it. Actors probably get too much credit when something's good and take way too much blame when it's not good.
Okay. So, and the writing a book, and especially revealing yourself in your memoirs, that was important. I've read it. You know what? You just like the guy in the book, and I'm just so honored to have talked to you. Tell people how you can get the book. What's the name of the book? And thank you, Harlan, so much for being so patient with us.
Well, Mother Love, thank you. The name of the book is Prairie Man: My Little House Life and Beyond. It is released on June 25th, so a week from tomorrow. The book comes out. It is available for pre-order at Amazon.com as well as at BarnesandNoble.com. But I hope if people are interested in the book that they will walk into their local bookstores and ask for it, because your bookstore will get it for you. It's better for the book and it's better for the bookstore if you do that. But it's been an exciting process, Mother Love, and I would not have anticipated.
I am happy that I really am. My heart is full. The fact that you and Harlan, I love Harlan Ball. And he always gives me the greatest people to interview. Well, we're not an interview. We're just having a conversation.
Exactly.
That's all we doing. And I just want to wish you so much success. Thank you for joining us today. And good luck on your book tour. Come back again anytime you feel like me. You could talk real quick. And remember this, babies. No matter how big or tall, short or small, thick or thin, it matters not what skin you're in. Everybody needs some mother love now and then. And I'm the only other woman your wife gonna trust me with. Love you, mean